So something interesting happened last week during the Crawford versus Canelo fight. Something interesting other than the fact that Canelo got completely just bodied by Crawford, and that hurts to say as a Canelo fan myself, but besides the fact that Canelo got absolutely rocked by Crawford, something interesting happened on that day. Before the main event, they started panning the camera towards the audience, showing all the famous people that were there, like Mike Tyson and whomever else was there, I don't remember. But they started panning the camera towards the audience, showing all the famous people, and they put it on their big Jumbotron TV screen or whatever. And one of the people that they panned towards, his name was Turki Al-Sheikh. And I'll let you listen to the reaction.
And chairman of the General Entertainment Authority and Saudi Boxing Federation, Turki Al-Sheikh. This event is a presentation of Riyadh season.
Now, what's interesting is that apparently they were ready for this, so they lowered the audio of the boos. So if you think that the boos are allowed in the actual video, if you were there, from what I hear from reliable reports, the boos were actually even louder. Now, some of you might be wondering who this person is, why are they booing him, what did he do? So this person's name is Turki Al-Sheikh, and he's the head of the General Entertainment Authority, or the GEA. Now, the GEA is the branch of the Saudi government that deals with entertainment, not just with sports, but also with media, like with movies or books. Now, Al-Sheikh heads this department, and he is in charge of ensuring relations between Saudi Arabia and all of these other intercontinental sports organizations, among many other things. And he has financed and bankrolled a lot of these high-profile fights, which a lot of people might be wondering why that's such a bad thing. If we weren't originally going to get a Canelo versus Crawford boxing match, isn't it a good thing that we have Al-Sheikh over here coming in and financing these big boxing matches, making boxing a lot more fun and a lot more entertaining for the audience? And of course, the answer ultimately has to do with something called sports washing. Now, a lot of you might not know what sports washing is, or might have kind of heard it on the periphery of some other conversation. So ultimately what ends up happening is that you have countries like Qatar or Saudi Arabia, countries with a poor public perception, that are attempting to alleviate that poor public perception by investing in sports, by investing in something that the whole world likes. Hopefully, they'll be able to overlook their human rights abuses. With Saudi Arabia, for example, you still have male guardianship laws, you have no freedom of the press, you have no freedom of speech. If you say anything ill of the government, they have every right to seize you and lock you up and possibly even engage in a public execution. Not only that, but a country like Saudi Arabia also wants to have more revenue streams rather than just strictly relying on oil. So they'll invest in the entertainment industry abroad, in boxing and soccer and whatever, in hopes of two things. One, for the public perception of them to start turning positively, especially for those who are apolitical, but two, also to have a separate revenue stream and not just strictly rely on oil. And sports washing ultimately does work, even though there are people like me and commentators out there that do talk about sports washing, and people like me actually do care about it. It's the main reason why I struggle to even continue to watch Manchester City, which used to be my favorite Premier League team, but because they are a perfect example of sports washing, I no longer support them in the same way that I did before, if I even do anymore, honestly. But even though people like me and some journalists do talk about sports washing ultimately does work. And specifically with Saudi Arabia and the Premier League, you'll have Saudi Arabia, the Public Investment Fund specifically, which is supposed to be separate from the government, but I mean, it obviously isn't. You have them owning and financing large sections of a lot of these Premier League teams. Most recently, it happened with Newcastle United. And they don't just finance the teams, but they also finance a lot of the infrastructure within those cities as well. And so a lot of the people, for example, living in Newcastle, even if they weren't a Newcastle fan, they might now have a positive look of the Saudi regime because, well, hey, now a lot of their infrastructure is looking a lot better. The Saudi regime has pestilentially spread not just from soccer, but it's in golf, it's in boxing, it's just about every major sport that you look, you see an attempt at sports washing happen. And people are getting really tired of it. There is a threshold for a lot of people where if something is just, it's too bad to the point where they can no longer support it, and people are getting rightfully upset because at the end of the day, whether you like it or not, Saudi Arabia is ultimately worse than the United States. Now, Al-Sheikh himself has done some pretty crazy stuff, including allegedly assaulting an Egyptian singer and her reporting it to the police only for her to go missing for 2 years and then just nothing coming out of that situation at all. Now, there's this great Athletic article that I'm going to link in the description of the video below that details how he rose to power, how he rose to prominence, as well as all the crazy stuff that he's involved in and allegedly involved in. And stuff like that, it matters. It does ultimately bother people who are political, but for the apolitical, like Crawford, to them they see this as a positive change. Hey, someone's coming in, shaking things up in boxing, putting together these boxing matches that wouldn't have existed otherwise. Isn't that a good thing? And the question that we have to ultimately ask ourselves is, to what degree are we willing to sacrifice our moral integrity within the entertainment industry just for the sake of having better more entertainment, I guess. I guess it depends on where your threshold is, right? If you're the type of person who says that, well, every country kind of sucks, I guess, and your iPhone was made by children in a sweatshop factory, I'm sure, so this is just that, right? There's no big difference. But for a lot of other people, like myself included, there's a threshold. Yeah, sure, we do a lot of immoral things that we don't really think about, and we don't really think about where a lot of the things that we have come from. That sucks, and we should. But we also can't just exhaust our mental acumen to every single thing imaginable, right? You can't just look at something and think to yourself, wait, before I buy it, where did it come from? And you have all of these calculations in your head to make sure that everything that you're doing is perfectly moral. Obviously, that's not possible, and obviously that's just the extreme end of one particular argument, but this is a stretch too far. So anyway, so yeah, I might go into sports washing into more detail in a future video, but for now, I think that I just wanted to touch upon this because I thought it was really interesting when I was watching the Canelo match, and then I saw people booing Turki Al-Sheikh. I was a little surprised by that, so that's nice. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys.